Welcome to MegaTrade101.com video presentation. This is a live presentation of what the market is actually doing right now as far as the euro, the pound, the Swiss francs, the Japanese yen, the Australian dollar, as well as the New Zealand dollar, or rather the QE, with regards to the euro pound on a weekly and the euro yen. As you would have noticed that we have now 8 comparative charts on the market that we basically wanted to present and how the market is actually doing from our previous analysis that the euro on a weekly chart basis now has touched 1.2820, which is actually the high at 35 or 1.2835 from a low of 125.22, which we also wanted to share with you previously that the 1.2510 would have been an ideal entry price for the long position. Not that the euro or the pound is getting stronger, but simply because the US dollar index or the dollar in itself has been weakening, prompting the European majors to work its way up to its price right now, and that the pound in itself here on a weekly basis is working at 1.5350, and comparing it with the dollar Swiss on a weekly basis, which made the low of 1.0454 from a high of 1.0675. As we have indicated in our market view report, that the 1.0530 would have been the key price level to look at, and once it has penetrated the downside, it would be targeting the 1.0380, which is not far off from the 1.0454 low that it has done this week. Comparing it with the Japanese yen, right now it's working at 88.10 from a high of 89.14 and a low of 87.84, and it still looks like the Japanese yen, or rather the dollar yen, on a weekly basis, comparing it with the Swiss francs, is now moving on its directional trend lower as far as the strength of the yen and the Swiss francs is in tandem with the weakness of the US dollar. Meanwhile, here on the New Zealand dollar, or rather the Kiwi as we call it, basically it's working at 0.7232 from, let's see if we can get the low at 0.7054, and it still looks like it's still targeting the previous high, approximately in the range which we have mentioned. Let's see if we can get the prices here at 0.7322, which is actually the high and the next resistance level. Looking at the Australian dollar on a weekly basis, you would see that it's currently working at 0.8834, which is approximately where the resistance price level is. That is why it is slowly pacing the prices on the Kiwi, simply because it is finding some resistance on a weekly basis. If we look at it on a daily basis here, it looks like a hanging man on a candlestick, which basically on a daily basis may have to move lower. Finding a resistance at these prices would simply mean that volumes, especially on the end of the week trading, may simply be moving lower, simply to liquidate for before the end of the week is over. However, the dollar's movement will still have to continue to move lower, prompting that the Australian dollar and the Kiwi would move, still continue to move higher, and the kiwi in itself reaching a high of 0.7241 still has enough room or enough legs to be able to move higher, considering the movement of the US dollar is still intact heading south of the border. Well, with that said, with the New Zealand dollar as well as the British pound, which we have taken liberty in doing a long positions on both majors simply because we have anticipated that the weakness of the US dollar would still continue this week and chances for it to move lower for the third quarter of the year is more likely to happen rather than an actual reversal for it to move higher. At this point in time, this gives the pound as well as the kiwi a more favorable choice to trade, not because of anything else, but rather the euro in itself is only pacing with the British pound, which basically has been the best performing currency, or rather major currency at that, for this particular week. Comparing it with the euro here, euro yen on a weekly basis has formed a rounded bottom, which may indicate a short-term up move with a high of 113.27. But this weekly formation, although it looks like a rounded bottom on a configuration and clusters of bars, which holds true on a temporary basis, but the down movement for the euro yen would still more likely happen. And comparing it with the euro pound, which basically a spinning top here with a longer tail shadow, as others may call it, or a wick, with a low of 0.8067, which you could see here. And we've been using a Fibonacci retracement where we are looking at the possible retracement periods and price levels to where it's heading. And currently now it's on a Fibonacci at 0.84 level, and we're looking at a short and temporary movement as the euro continues to move higher, and looks like the spinning top here has proven its worth on a weekly basis, making a relief movement higher, which we would indicate that the euro will still be able to have some room to move higher. And as far as this one is concerned, we're looking at favoring the euro, pacing with the British pound more favorable rather than the Swiss, which we're looking at. Again, we're looking at, based on our recommendations, where we're looking at 1.0380 as the next target level, as there seems to be no real indication for a reversal even on a monthly basis here, and looking at it on a daily basis here is more negative than it is. So at any rate, we would like to show you these comparisons of the 8 currencies, including 2 cross-rate trades, where the New Zealand dollar as well as the pound would have been a favorable choice to make for the week ending the 16th of July. So we're currently working at the price level where the dollar is still moving lower, and hopefully this week has been favorable in your trades, and we would like to thank you again for listening to our video presentation. Have a good weekend and God bless.